This section heading is called Remote Reflected Cross-Site Scripting. So what we're going to do in this section is we're going to demonstrate a remote reflected cross-site scripting attack, and then we'll also discuss its attributes. So the first step that I'm having you do within this section of this lab is to open up a terminal and issue an ifconfig. So we're issuing an ifconfig so we can see the IP address that's associated with EAT0, which is 192.168.1.5. So in a remote reflected cross-site scripting attack, what you're going to do is you're going to send or reflect information to a specific location rather than back to the local user. So we're going to reflect it to this location right here. Now, the way that we're going to be able to view the information that's reflected is we're going to need to set up a collection server. So we're going to type python-m, and it's simple, HTTP, and then server. So this is going to start up a server that will listen on all available interfaces on the system and have a server listening port of 8000. So now I'm going to minimize this terminal. And now the next thing that we're going to do is go inside of the exploits directory inside of lab 5. What you're going to find inside of there are two files. The file over to the right is a text file. So if we right click, we can see the default application is to open with LeafPad. We're just going to select that. So inside of here, you're going to find a script element. Now what's a part of this element is the document.write JavaScript property. So this can be used to write to an HTML document. So what it's looking to write is over here in parentheses. So we can see over here, we're looking to write an image to our current web page that's from this source. On the end over here, we can see that we're kind of appending or concatenating on this document.cookie JavaScript property. And as we said, this can be used to detect the presence of a session ID. Now what's going to happen here is we're specifying an image to be written to the page. We're not actually saying that we have an image over here, so we're not actually specifying one. And what's going to happen is we're going to get an unresolved image, and because we've got this kind of appended on the end over here, it's actually going to result in sending our session information to this location. So now we're going to Control A, Control C. We'll close this out, and now we're going to go to the other file. So we're going to right click. We're not going to choose the default application. We're going to open with another. Make sure Iceweasel is selected and click select. So your browsers don't always interpret characters the same way. So the way that we're going to ensure that they're interpreted the way that we want them to is we're going to encode them. So we're going to click inside of this text area, do a Control V, and then click encode. Click back in there, Control A, Control C to copy, close this tab. So now we're going to supply this as the value for my username. Control V, hit enter. So we can see the unresolved image on the web page. Now, what makes this a remote reflected cross-site scripting attack as opposed to a locally reflected? And as I said, it's because the session information got sent to a specific location. What is common between the two is if we right click and we view the page source, what you're going to find is that the insertion occurs within the client side file only. And that's what we can see right here. We can see the insertion. So now if we close this out, we're going to verify that that information got reflected to that location. We're going to minimize this and go over to the terminal. And then inside the terminal, you're going to find that session ID.